So now it's exercise time. Normally at Hack Reactor, how we handle exercises, we would go to the pairing machines and do that. But since we can't do that, we're going to have to mix it up. If you're here together, I recommend pairing. I think it's really helpful and it makes things fun. You learn how to communicate your code, and it actually can clarify in your mind your understanding to take these intuitive understandings of how JavaScript works and apply these rules to them and really make that solid. So if you can, pair up. And I'm just going to walk you through a little bit how to get started with the exercises. Again, if you just type in the bit.ly, so the bit.ly is bit.ly JS102-exercises. And you can also find that on the first slide, and I think Mark sent out an email prior. And so that will bring you to this GitHub repo. And what you can do then is you can download, hit this button here, download zip, whoops. So you download the zip here. Let's see. I'll just save it for now. And so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing this eFarmony project. So eFarmony is this hot new dating app for animals. You know, looking for funding, so if there's any VCs out there, it's a great idea. And I have hundreds of engineers across the world working on it right now. Jokes aside, we're going to clone down the repo, and we're going to start here. In the before you get started section, it's going to tell you sort of how to navigate the files and where to go. So you're going to, we just downloaded the zip, and now we're going to explore the file. So if we show this in our Finder, we have to unzip it, of course. And then we're going to go in here. And so the first thing we can do is we're going to open our index.html file. And we'll notice that this page is intentionally left blank. And basically what this is for, this HTML page is for, is just to be able to play in your console with the code that you write in your script.js file. So if we go here to our script.js file, and we're going to open it with our text editor, whatever that you choose, and we'll see in comments here, we're going to use this file. It's actually not just part one. It's going to be, we're just going to do all of our code in this file. And so if we just console.log animal here, we're going to be typing animal a lot and farm a lot today. And we refresh here, we see we have a console.log animal. So that's one way, that's one workflow. Again, you type in the text editor, you save it. Saving is important. And then you refresh the page, and that's when you can access the changes in your code. And then, for example, we can say var my animal equals an empty object, and we can give it some properties. You know, maybe it's a sheep, so it says ba. Again, I saved it, so for me, Command S is save, and then I refresh the page, Command R, and then I can type in my animal. So notice my animal I can then access in my developer tools. So I'm using Chrome. You can also use Firefox if that's what you prefer. And to open your developer tools, you go to View, Developer, and then JavaScript Console. And if you get lost in it, you can always, on this first, there's a bunch of tabs, and it's easy to get lost in the tabs. You can always just click here and click back to console. And so that's the workflow of how you're going to be doing this project. If you're online, you could try JSBen. It might be more helpful if you want to share your code in the chat room. So if you put it in JSBen, you would just need to put your JavaScript here, and then you have your console. So if you open your JSBen this way, so where you have the JavaScript tab on one side and the console on the other, and then you can do the same thing. And then you'd hit run, and that would print out to your console. And so that's sort of the workflow of how you're going to be doing this project. So throughout the day, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be implementing two parts of this app. We're going to be making the data structures, and we're going to be adding some functionality to it. There's no UI. This is not like a jQuery HTML CSS class. It's only going to be two parts of your application. Again, the data structures and the functionality, like very crude, basic functionality. And if you think about it, apps are really just three parts. You have your data, you have your view, like the UI, and then you have the functionality behind it. So you're kind of making 2/3 of an app anyway. So even though it might not be like flashy, you still, that's 2/3 done. And if anyone makes a UI for it, please send it to me. That'd be really cool to see that. Cool. So we explored the files. Oh, some other fun things is I do give free tutoring to people who whoever sends the most corrections to either my slides, my exercises, or clarifies any unclear directions, or gives me anything like that. I do give free tutoring. For more directions, you can see this tab, a note on free tutoring. And yeah, and so what we're going to do is we're just going to do the objects one. You can open that here. And this is just a README file, so you don't have to download it or anything. You can just go through the projects. And I'll give you about 15 or 20 minutes or so to go through this, and I'll just walk around. So do we have any questions about? Yeah, Mark?
This one is in the chat room at the beginning, so I'm not sure if they answered it themselves, but what means tagline in an animal object? Like any string?
Yeah, it could be any string. It could be any string.
Like
so the
your spot for animal dating. That's what you were looking for.
What's that?
Like your go-to spot for animal dating. That was the tag.
Well, it would be like your user tagline. So on your profile, I don't know, like under your name, you could say like.
I'm the hottest sheep in the farm.
Yeah, something to that effect. Something to that effect. So, like single sheep looking for love. So something to that effect.
Into other animals.
What?
Into other animals.
Yeah. Into other sheep, sometimes cows, Just kidding. Okay, so let's just go through the solutions. I want to thank Katrina, who is my awesome lead TA at Hack Reactor, for providing the solutions. She is awesome. Okay, so the first thing is we're just going to create an empty animal object. So we're just using that object literal notation, storing it in a variable. We're giving it a name, so animal.username. We're going to call it mittens, and it's going to have a tagline, which is pet mean. So this is dot notation, this is bracket notation. Again, at this point, they're interchangeable. So here we're creating an array. I know we haven't gotten to arrays, but I'm assuming that you've used them before. An empty array, and then we're assigning that empty array to animal.noises. So when we console log our, one second here. When we console log our animal object, we see in our console that we have an object. Should print out something like this. We have an empty array with a tagline and a username. Thumbs? Everyone get that far? Cool. Is everyone being honest? Cool. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So for the counting one, here we are. We're going to loop through all of the properties in the object. So we have key, and every time we loop, we're going to increment our counter. So count plus plus is the same as saying count equals count plus 1. It's just a shorthand. And here we're going to do that check. I'm going to recommend that we always use triple equals. Nope.
Can you explain that a little bit? That's one thing that I've never really understood. Double versus
tuples. So triple equals is a strict check. So, and then double equals is more lenient. So like, for example, if we do string 1, double equals 1, that might return true, even though that might not be what you're looking for. And then because JavaScript has some weird like falsy, truthy Boolean things, it's better just to always do a strict check with the 3 equals.
Could you argue that in some cases you'd want to use double equals because you might not be sure what the value or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully.
Like, should you maybe if you're developing an app, should you try to force yourself to be using triple equals all the time and like ensure that you know what the type of
even though JavaScript's really flexible, you should try to be strict and like kind of know what you're expecting. You don't want your app to give you something that you're not expecting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because who knows the consequences of that. So try not to.
Okay.
If you really need to for some reason, then if you're working with some other code that you don't really have control over, then and you know what you're doing. Yeah.
Thanks.
Some of the type conversions can be variable on how the browser manufacturer implements it as well, so you might not have the same,
That's
same
also a good
behavior
point.
across browsers.
Absolutely.
I just want to clarify something, that the variable returned from the for-in loop is always the name of the property, not the property itself.
The
Is that correct?
variable return from the for-in loop. Well, there's no variable here being returned. Just so, like, for example, if I returned a variable here.
So what key gets set to there in the for-in?
Oh, what key is at any given moment?
Yeah, it's the name of the property, not the property itself.
Yeah, so it's the property. So we have a property name and then a property value. And so the key is always going to be the property name. If you think of an object as like a filing cabinet or a dictionary, some language like Python call them dictionaries. You call it a dictionary or a hash. You can think of it as a filing cabinet where we have the files and then there's a label. So the label in which we're going to look up our files is going to be the property name, and then what's contained within those folders is going to be the value. So for example, if you want to look up the username in your filing cabinet, you would have to say filing cabinet.username. So that means you're going to be opening a filing cabinet, looking through, selecting that file whose tab says, I don't know if people even know what filing cabinets look like anymore, but whose tab says username, and you pull out that file and you open it. What's contained in it is the value, and that's like the metaphor I like to think of for an object. So, and the key would be that the property name, which is that tab. Cool? Awesome.
I just wanted to make a comment on equals. That's basically allowing type coercion, and Kyle Simpson's new You Don't Know JavaScript book series, he covers a lot about type coercion in JavaScript in his 4th book in the series called Types and Grammar.
Oh, cool.
So that's a good place to go if you really want to learn the ins and outs of coercion.
Awesome. Cool. So back to the exercise. So we have this for loop, and here we're going to count, we're going to count how many times we're looping through. And we know that whatever this number is, it's going to be the number of properties we have in our object, right? So every time we loop, we're going to increment the counter. We're also going to do this if-else statement. So it's always going to check if the key, that property name, equals the string username. If so, it's going to come into this block and console log, hi, my name is, and then name. And so notice here, we're accessing the value at that key versus on this line, we're accessing the property name. So important thing. And we're doing bracket notation again because key is a variable. And just remember in loops, when you have like var I equals 0 in some loops or key, those are always going to be variables. And so that should be a cue if you are looping that you're going to be using the bracket notation and not the dot notation. So in here, the same thing, except if it's a tagline, you console log, I like to say, and then animal key. In this case, it's pet me. So a follow-up question is, what happens if you return hi, my name is plus whatever instead of using console log inside the loop? It's going to happen. Anyone try that out?
Break.
Did you guys get there? Who got to that point? Okay, so Can I see thumbs on who got to this part? Okay, so most people didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the answer is that when you put a return statement inside the loop, actually, I don't know if you can even put a return statement outside of a function.
No, that's
It
girl's
broke it.
exception.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, but if this was inside of a function, and you put a return statement inside the loop, what it would do is it would immediately stop looping and return out of the function. We'll get into more detail about that when we get to functions in a few minutes, but that's something important. That's why I have you console.logging and not returning, because it would stop the loop.